Okay, I'm going to call this August 19th, 2021 regular board meeting to order, 7:01 p.m. Could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have anyone for public forum?
We do have one person this evening. Jacqueline did not show.
Okay. We have Colleen Cunningham, if you could please come on up.
Where should I go?
Wherever you're comfortable. Either comfortable there or you want her up here, Chris?
Let's
here.
up at the
Come on up.
lectern so we can hear you on the live stream.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham.
Hi, good evening. My name is Colleen Cunningham. I live a short walk from here, and my son will soon start at the ECC in pre-K. Our district's actions make clear that you all understand the importance of vaccines, masks, and careful mitigation procedures, so I won't take your time arguing those points. I'll just thank you for your careful work you've done so far to ensure the safety of our community and our children. Thank you for doing the right things. I ask you now to do the next right thing and ensure that the district staff who come into contact with our children have been vaccinated or are able to provide negative COVID tests at least weekly. We are over a year and a half into this pandemic, and much of the current loss of life, strain on our healthcare system, and disruption of lives could have been prevented. But we are only as strong as our weakest links. It is unfair that the preferences of a minority can threaten the health of a community. Individuals have failed to take the needed collective action. It's time for our wise leadership to ensure our children are safe and our schools stay open. We parents entrust the district with our most precious possessions, and many of our children are too young to themselves benefit from life-saving vaccines. So we look to you to provide the guarantee that those who come into contact with our children are as safe as possible. Protecting our children in this way will have the full backing of the healthcare and scientific communities and the majority of families in Maplewood and Richmond Heights. Thank you for your continued leadership on this.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, I know that we'll be talking about some COVID data today, which goes well with Ms. Cunningham's statements, and I know that we've also posted some things and put out some information for parents, and so we look forward to having more discussions. Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Okay, can I get an approval of the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carries. On to study items. Policy BBFA. Dr. Jameson.
Thank you. Good evening, Board, President Herndon, Miller. Policy BBFA was presented during the July board meeting for the first reading. The policy requires all political subdivisions, public officials, or employees to file a personal financial disclosure statement when the budget exceeds $1 million. Readoption of this policy is required in order for the district to remain in compliance with the Missouri Ethics Commission. What I am asking at this time is given a recommendation for the board to approve policy BBFA so that we are able to remain in compliance.
Okay, thank you. Did anyone have any, well, actually moving on to policy batch 2021B as well. And really quick, they're having a hard time hearing us, so if we could raise our voices just a little bit. Thank you.
So policy IGCD and IGCDA were presented also at the last board meeting. These two policies, one of them is actually new, but it's a separation of the Missouri Course Access Program, MOCAP, and so they initially had MOCAP combined with virtual instruction that's provided by school districts. And so what's been done is these two policies have been pulled apart. The added piece for The policy is that it includes an opportunity for districts to address any challenges or issues that surface from students in the virtual environment. So again, IGCD and IGCDA are not new policies, just a separation to show the difference between MOCAP and then virtual instruction provided by the school district.
Okay.
And a recommendation will be made later to approve those two policies.
Okay, 2021, 2022 bus routes. It doesn't say who's doing that one for me. Chris
Who's doing
Olson.
bus routes?
Chris?
Bus routes.
Oh, yes, sorry. We were just adjusting some audio settings back there. These are the bus routes for the upcoming school year as required by policy. There's not much to say about these other than these are the routes that we're presenting to you for approval.
Are there any significant changes?
There are not.
Okay, moving on to construction change orders for ECC and MRHE. I think that's Chris as well.
It didn't have a name on it, sorry about that. Okay, so these change orders have been presented to you this evening. We've got the high school, middle school change order 1, which is for the boiler room sump pump. There's groundwater coming up, and the sump pump will take care of that before we cover up that floor in the boiler room. High school, middle school change order 2. An additional work order for an exhaust hood fan at the gym lobby roof. We found an old one up there that was no longer sufficient and needed replaced. ECC change order 2. This is a change in the fencing, the aluminum fencing, or excuse me, this is the removal of the vinyl fencing that's no longer available, or is not currently available. We're removing that from Wachter's contract, and we'll be completing that work on our own as soon as that fencing becomes available. We weren't willing to sacrifice an inferior product and decided to wait on that fence. There currently is a fence between the old Steak and Shake lot and the Early Childhood Center, so safety and security will still be intact. Change order 3. We added some exposed aggregate concrete to areas where we've been having regular drainage issues at the ECC. While the contractor had the concrete crews mobilized, we decided to go ahead and have those areas taken care of. There was also a large piece of concrete slab, exposed aggregate slab, that was broken and causing drainage and safety issues. So we decided to go ahead and get that taken care of too while the contractors were on site and mobilized. Elementary change order 3. This was removing wall spigots. They're called hydrants, but essentially hose connections in the bathrooms at the elementary school. We decided that those were not required. Change order 4 at the elementary. This was for moisture mitigation on the concrete slab that was exposed at the elementary school. The adhesive would not adhere until that was taken care of. And change order 5, finally, at the elementary, is to remove wet drywall found behind existing wall base and resheet with drywall. So there was just some areas where there was some drywall found that was insufficient, and again, instead of covering over that, we decided to have that replaced. Are there any questions?
I think we're covering this in a later agenda item as far as the overall construction update in terms of the budget and the change order allowances per building and stuff like that. I think it's covered later, so just wanted to make sure that that was everybody's understanding for going forward.
Yes. Thank you for that, Chris.
You're welcome.
Okay, moving into admin communications, COVID-19 update by Dr. Jameson.
Thank you. So since the onset of the pandemic, administration has provided updates regarding the COVID-19 metrics, as well as using the information for planning and decision-making. There are 2 attachments for the board that shows the updated data for the comparison. The information is compiled from the St. Louis County dashboard, the Missouri Department of Health, and then the Regional COVID-19 Task Force. So I want to start here looking at the Missouri data in aggregate, and then also the St. Louis County data. And so you will see that for confirmed COVID-19 cases, we continue to see an increase. However, when we look at the past 7 days worth of data for confirmed cases, there's actually been a decrease from the report that was initially provided to the board. Current transmission rate is 0.99%. The goal is to have a number below 1, and it has actually decreased from the previous data that was reported, which was a little bit higher at 1.05% for transmission rate. This is an interesting piece of data that I want to highlight, and just to show the rate of change in just 1 week. And so currently, if we look at the data for the number of raw cases in the last 7 days for the state of Missouri, there are 13,197. Just with the data that was presented on August 13th, that number was 13,940. And so when you look at that 7-day raw number and then looking at the St. Louis County raw number, you see that we are having a decrease. So the data on August 13th for St. Louis County for the last 7 days prior to the data that was pulled yesterday was 1,677, and currently from the data pulled yesterday was 1,590. And so although we're seeing a decrease, you can still see that when we get to later data that there are increases in the number of cases for children below the age of 15. So here's where we are with our positivity rate. So for the state of Missouri, we're at 14.10%. And I will say that that is actually decreased from the previous week, which was 14.70%. And then for St. Louis County, the previous week was 12.70%, and we are currently at 11.10%, which is a decrease of 1.6%. We are still in the red regarding the data, which shows that we have greater than 10% of positive COVID-19 tests. But as we get further along in the data, you will find that our zip code data does not reflect the same, which I'll highlight. So for zip code data, you will find that the numbers have not changed that much. So the previous week's data had 23 new cases within the last 14 days. As you can see, we're down to 22. And then for the zip code of 63143, there actually was an increase in 2 additional cases, so it went from 20 to 22. And this kind of highlights where we are with current risk level by age group. And so just want to allow us an opportunity to see this and then think about where the numbers were before in July. So we still see that there is an increase in the current risk level, particularly for those littles who fall between the age of 5 and 9, and then 10 through 14, which are those students who are not currently having the opportunity to be vaccinated. So the total cases for the last 14 days, that data was not available, and some of the websites have not actually updated that information, but you can see here, based on the data that's provided, the change between the data that was provided on August 13th to what it is currently now. So on August 13th, for the age group of 5 to 9, we had 25 total cases. That is currently 38. For the age group of 10 to 14, we had 31. We are now at 45. And for the age group of 15 to 19, we were at 44, and now we are at 61. And so this is the total positive MRH cases. Currently, you will see that the staffing information has not changed since the last update, but we do have 2 student cases. Those student cases are not actually occurring within the school setting, but I did want to reflect that because that information was reported. And then as far as the number of individuals quarantining, currently you have 2, obviously, who are not in the school system, and then none for staff. So the vaccine rates are actually listed. Again, looking at the aggregate, when we look at the state and county, we are seeing a steady increase. So the state rate prior to last week was 49.6%, and for the county, it was 53.7%. So again, still seeing an increase, but not enough increase in the vaccination rate as we look at the state and then also the county. But again, the numbers look quite different when we begin to look at our zip code data. So here's where we are as it relates to how our community, our families are being vaccinated. So 63117 is at 71%. That's an increase from 68% just from last week. And then for 63143, it was at 55% last week. It's now at 59%. And so it appears that we need to do some work for the 63143 zip code and think about how to get our families in and to be vaccinated. Just another data slice that's included here, looking at the age group of students that are vaccinated and that percentage. Again, we know that for those students ages 10 to 24, some of our students do not have access to vaccinations yet, but the numbers are continuing to increase as well. So I wanted to take a little time to address a couple of the things that surfaced from our town hall meetings, and we have really been working to be transparent with our community and also answer the questions that surface along the way. And so we are continuing to look at how do we continue to remain open safely while providing a quality education to our students. So we're continuing with the universal mitigation measures. So the layered approach has definitely worked. Our data from last year indicates the same. We will continue with mask mandates regardless of vaccination status, social distancing, hand hygiene, plexi, our screening tool, cohorting, daily routine cleaning, and then also only allowing essential visitors into our spaces. The other piece that I want to highlight is the vaccination rates of our community. So we talked a little bit earlier about 63117 at 71% and 63143 being at 59%. And so we are working as an administrative team to identify dates to host additional vaccine clinics for our community, and then also partnering with our local partners within the community to support the vaccination clinics that they're running. So before I came to the board meeting today, I did stop over to the fire department in Maplewood just to see if we had traffic coming through for families. So they're excited, and they have also indicated that they want to continue to partner to help us increase the vaccination rates within our community. In-school transmission rates is a huge piece. One of the questions that we received was what number or what data will we use to begin to think about pivoting? That was actually a conversation during our task force meeting today. It will carry on into our meeting next week. And so we're looking at the data on a regular basis. We're having the conversations, but there is not a number that has been identified by regional superintendents, but that's a conversation that we're going to begin to have, and an update will be provided to the board and the community. The other question that we received was around current faculty and student vaccination rates. So I do want to thank Ms. Meacham for getting together our surveys so that we were able to get that information from our staff. So we have approximately 250 staff members. Of those 250 staff members, 255 responded. We are at 95% of our staff members being vaccinated currently, with 3% indicating that they are not vaccinated, and we had 4 of our respondents indicating that they did not want to respond to the survey. So I feel like as a district we're in a really good place regarding the vaccination rates for staff. Now, where we saw the gap for us is in our student vaccination data. And so right now, just based on the data that we have access to, we have approximately 25% of our middle and high school students who are vaccinated. And so that information was acquired by Vaccination, and the information that was given by parents, and then for those students who participated in district-sponsored vaccination clinics. And so we do know that we have some work to do there, but just to kind of give you an idea, the total enrollment for the middle and high school is about 643 students. So we have approximately 164 students vaccinated. So we are working to provide opportunities for families to share that information if they feel comfortable, and then also continuing to offer clinics for our families to increase that number, because that is an opportunity for growth for us. That concludes the COVID-19 update. I welcome any questions that you may have.
Given our very low vaccination rate for students in the middle school and high school, are you planning to do another in-school vaccine clinic?
We are, and actually, Vince Estrada and I actually met today to talk about two before the vaccination is approved through the FDA for the younger students. On the call today, we initially were hoping for September, October. They are saying sometime in November for children 11 down to 6 for that to be ready to go. So we are already proactively looking at the partners that we have with the Visiting Nurses Association to continue to offer those clinics, but we will have two. The aim is to have 2 clinics in district prior to the clinic for our younger learners.
Anita, are you going to talk later today about a little bit more about the quarantining and that information? Is that later?
I am
Or are you going to do that now?
I can actually show. So thank you for asking that. So we met today, so I just want to kind of pull this up to provide some context. And we had some preliminary conversation, the admin team, around modified quarantine. And the question that we were getting from parents was, the document that was released was very convoluted and difficult for parents to see what will happen to students if. And so I do want to clarify that a student who's vaccinated who contracts COVID does have to isolate. And so I think the assumption was that they did not, but they will have to isolate those 10 days, and then there are other factors there. And so we particularly like this decision tree because it talks about the COVID-19 exposure, quarantine, and isolation. We do plan to make a small tweak here on the document that's provided by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. It's saying were they properly masked, and we're saying that it's all of the mitigation measures layered that helps us to keep our students safe. And so conversation and COA will occur on Monday. We will make adjustments to this and then share this information out to our families so that they have an opportunity to react to it and ask any questions that they may have. But most of the regional superintendents are looking at this one because it provides an opportunity for us to look at modified quarantine. And I think, again, the assumption is that we are not quarantining students if they're in close contact. That is not correct. But looking at modified quarantine allows us to keep more students in school so that they can have access. And modified quarantine was actually implemented towards the end of last year and actually proved to be successful. So the team last year did a great job of the implementation of the mitigation measures and did not see, if not any, transmission in schools. And so that's what we're looking at. I will say that some conversation was had around those districts that are went mask optional and increases in rates, and Dr. Newland talked to the group about that as well in transmission. So I am very excited that the board is supporting the administration with the mask mandate to ensure that our staff and students are safe.
Just a reminder for our community that those kids that are in quarantine will continue to get education virtually.
Correct, absolutely. So, and I will also mention that DESE just recently made a change where that we can count those students for attendance purposes, because initially the conversation was those students cannot be counted for attendance purposes. And if we are here to remove barriers and provide access, it's important that they have an opportunity not only to Zoom in, but we're thinking about impact if those students are applying for A+ loans and things like that.
Thank you.
You discussed in the town hall that parents are welcome to volunteer vaccination information for their own children, so that you can better track for quarantine purposes who's already been vaccinated. Will there be a formal communication coming from the district to solicit more of that information?
Yes, and Vince and I talked about that today, and the technology department is making changes to the system so parents can upload that information. So we are working to have a concerted effort, and then also to look at a campaign so that they see the value in actually becoming vaccinated, and how the modified quarantine is much friendlier for those students. And then as we think about those who engage in athletics and things like that, there is a benefit for being vaccinated.
I'm glad to hear that, because this is a fluid process. Every day it changes, and I want our families to be able to have and to feel comfortable offering that information and realizing what we see today might change tomorrow. Benita, can you go back to the staff number really quickly?
Absolutely.
I might have misheard, so can you just repeat those?
Absolutely, absolutely. So the numbers that we had, we have approximately 250 employees. Thus far, as of today, probably around 3-ish, we had 205 respondents. And of those 205 respondents, we had a 95% rate of participants saying that they are vaccinated, with 3% saying that they are not. And so Ms. Meacham and I discussed who we thought the missing 45 were, and we thought about custodial staff, food service, and so we have a plan to actually communicate with those leads to encourage them to take a moment to complete the survey. Again, I was quite pleased to see the large number of staff members who are actually vaccinated within our school district.
Yeah, thank you. I just knew that there was a gap there, and how are we going to try to capture that?
Yeah.
So thank you.
Dr. Jameson, can you also talk about how our families can look for this information that they need with regard to communication?
Yes.
And also, I believe some district emails have gone out, but not everyone has gotten them. What can they do about that?
So Ed Rich can actually support with that. So you have to actually opt in to get the district's correspondence. And so if families did not opt in, they wouldn't get the emails that are pushed out by Ed. And then we also post information on our all of our social media accounts. I also post the information on Twitter as well. And I will say, I encourage parents to continue to email, because I love the advocacy. I think sometimes, the thought is maybe that we don't want to hear, but we do want to hear, and we are taking those questions into consideration, and they actually drive, coupled with data, the conversations that we have in COA. And so when we get those questions about how do families get the information, how do we communicate that consistently across whatever mediums that we have, and then also thinking about how do we reach those families who are not getting the communication, and what's the best way to do that. I will say that I'm really excited about the work that Ed and his team are doing to get our new website up and running, which also includes an app, and having the ability to push out text messages and things like that from our families. So we did distribute a survey to families to see what information they wanted to receive, how they want to receive it, and the frequency of such. And so we'll be making those adjustments as we develop our communication plan.
Do we have a timeline on that new website?
I believe Ed indicated mid-September. So there's some transfer of information that needs to go over.
That's wonderful.
And can you tell us how the families need to communicate that they want to opt in if they haven't?
Yes, they would send an email to Ed Rich indicating that they would like to opt in, and then he will work with them to get them connected so that they can receive the communication.
Thank you. Anybody have any other questions? Okay, moving on to Superintendent Entry Plan. Dr. Jameson.
Okay, perfect. So I wanted to give an update on where I am with the entry plan. I will say that I started very, very early with executing the entry plan, and I did attach the entry plan there as well. And so starting with probably March or April is when I began executing the entry plan. So I've had an opportunity to meet with all of the board members one-on-one individually, have developed and identified dates for us to actually meet. And so I do meet with Brandy weekly. So I just pull it up so that, there you go. All right. With weekly as well, but I've also had an opportunity to meet with all of my cabinet members one-on-one, and we have monthly collaborations. I've met with our mayors, the city manager for Maplewood, for Richmond Heights, and then I have a meeting scheduled on Monday with our new city manager from Maplewood. I've had 2 town hall meetings. I've met with all of the PTOs as well as the high school boosters, and in addition to one-on-one meetings with department leads and heads. And so I'm looking forward to the school year starting so I can begin my engagement sessions with students. I believe that there is power in student voice. And so really looking forward to hearing what they see as their hopes and fears, which is the protocol that I'm using to engage with them. I have also reviewed a great deal of documents. Thank you, Chris, for the audits. I had 3 binders of those to review from past and, of course, looking forward to present, and also looking over curricular materials, budget information, and things like that. So the conversations continue. I will continue to give updates as I have done in our weekly board notes to show the work that's being done and also to provide context to the decisions that are being made. Are there any questions about any of the items and just kind of the work that's taking place now currently?
Thank you for that update. Okay, moving on to ESSER 3, Return to Learning and Continuity Plan. Roxanna Meacham.
All right, so as I talked with you about last spring, we are allocated to receive $1,171,000 approximately in ESSER 3 funding. Last spring, we looked at data, and our data revealed that in alignment with other schools across the state and country, we noticed that our math progress was the area that seemed to be taking the most, having the most effects due to COVID, is how I'll say that. We also noticed that students in ELL were also having a difficult time, as well as our youngest learners. We did a survey of parents, students, and staff that was quite extensive, asking about return to learning, how they thought we did with the reopening last spring, and what they thought their students would need moving forward. Since then, we've done another survey of families, talking specifically about the ESSER priorities and asking what they thought our greatest needs were. What we heard from families was that they were most concerned about their students' social emotional well-being, as well as having some concerns about specific academic areas based on, you know, their own child's needs. We asked about spending priorities, and the 4 areas that surfaced in both data collections were the need to have additional staff to attend to specific learning needs for specific groups of students, social emotional supports, to provide services that may have been disrupted during COVID, including our early learning resources at the ECC, and to make sure that we had purchased curriculum and instruction materials that were relevant to any student needs that we saw. We did file that ESSER plan as of yesterday evening, and so we're awaiting DESE response. The budget priorities I have attached for you. So we've included money to make sure that we still have a one-to-one technology environment that's refreshed, to make sure that we're able to provide learning in whatever environment students might need it. We do have money to reopen preschool and to make sure that we are providing supplies, and that also includes, we added some additional staffing at ECC, so we have we have 2 individuals who have part of their day that's set aside for high-dose tutoring and interventions for any students that might have developmental delays. We have a social worker added in that budget, as well as any fees that we might need to continue continuity of virtual learning or online software, as well as the recovery interventions materials. We have money in for math training. Also additional nursing supports for this year. And we've included funding for comprehensive after-school programs in both reading, math, and social emotional supports. We are looking at a benchmarking tool to help us with some high school implementation for the following school year, as well as some diagnostic assessment and progress monitoring tools that we believe we'll need based on what we're seeing with current student performances. We're also planning for an amplified summer enrichment program next summer. This summer we thought folks needed a break, but next summer we want to do extra, so that was included, as well as social emotional learning tools, counseling, curriculum, and teacher training. We've included quite a bit of money to make sure that the mitigation measures can continue to be carried out, contact tracing additions, as well as staff stipends and safety training. And so I think we've got a pretty comprehensive package that will include not only the physical safety of our students, but the social emotional well-being, as well as any academic supports that they might need. Be happy to take any questions that you might have.
How will we get sort of reports back on the expenditures and the raises?
So we'll be giving you regular reports. We're also forming a committee of sorts, just like we have a title committee that will meet probably quarterly, just to review where we are, look at the expenditures. We can amend that budget as we go. So if we have data changes or we're seeing things, new needs that we didn't know that we have, we can do some switching around. So we've got a cross section of people that have volunteered to serve, just like our title committee serves, and we'll keep watching what's happening and then give you progress updates. This particular grant, unlike the others that we've received, for the 20% of funds that must be done to accelerate learning, require quite a bit of data collection, so we'll have plenty of data to be able to report back.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you for your work on that.
Yes, thank you. Mrhe playground surfacing contract, Chris Holder.
Yes, so last month you approved the playground equipment contract and installation, which also included a rubberized forward-in-place walkway to the play spaces. However, we strongly felt that the safest and best option for our students was to include rubberized play surface under all of our play equipment, and roughly about 3,000 square foot of that. So the initial contract that you approved was $128,610, and the addition of that 3,000 square foot of rubberized play surface is just $83,610. And this will allow the entire play surface, with the exception of the area around the boulders in Boulder Park, that will remain mulch, as to be a little bit more aesthetically close in appearance to the boulders that are there. And this work is being completed, Randy, when is that?
By mid-September.
Okay, about mid-September. And this will, I've included a couple of renderings of what this will look like. It's lighter in color, so it won't be as hot as some of the darker colors that we could choose. It'll also fade less and be less prone to fading. So again, this is a contract amendment, and we were able to realize about a 6%, I can't say savings, there was a price increase of 6% coming that we were able to realize some savings there if we would not have acted on this when we did. So presented for your approval is this rubberized surface under the play spaces.
Mm-hmm.
What's the life expectancy of that? Do you know?
Great question.
Life expectancy?
Oh gosh, I haven't asked that specific question, but you're probably 15, 20 years.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And then any kind of communication eventually to the community that uses that space outside of the school day about what's appropriate and inappropriate usage, because we run through that with the track being beat up with bikes and strollers and things like that as well.
That's actually a really good point. We'll need to make sure that we include some signage about appropriate community use and what that looks like. Great, thank you. Great suggestion.
Great. Okay, furniture purchase Chris Holder?
Okay, so I think we're about 6 weeks out, Randy, is that right, for the delivery of the furniture? But Angela and Color Art have finalized, I think, finally finalized their furniture selections for the new spaces that have been constructed at the elementary school. I've included some of the renderings of the furniture and finishes choices that they've made. And again, they did make some slight adjustments that lowered the cost about $800 from what the initial cost was. So not a lot of savings, but cheaper is always better in this sort of thing, or less money, I shouldn't say cheaper. So right now we are making do with some temporary tables and office furniture to get them through the start of the school year. But it's a little utilitarian, but they'll do fine, and we'll be very appreciative of their new furniture when it arrives. We're able to use Color Art. They have the state contract, and I've included the letter there with Ed Plus that verifies that. So we'll make sure that our policy allows us to forego the bidding process when we're using the cooperative purchasing, and this is that.
Looks like we're gonna have some nice and creative spaces for the kids.
They will be beautiful.
With furniture that will last for decades, so, because we, in the past, may have heard from the community about our furniture expenditures, which they're still in this building to this day.
Indeed,
20
they
years
are.
later, so this is.
And I will say that the
durable.
furniture that this is replacing is 18 years old.
Mhm.
And so it is worth spending a little bit extra to get the good quality furniture that lasts and lasts and lasts.
From your mouth to there. Right.
Any other questions? Okay, construction update, Randy Charles.
I will try to hit the highlights because I see Ed has a video, and we all know a video of pictures worth 1,000 words, so I'll try to keep mine down. In terms of where we stand preparing for the kids to return next week, here at the high school, still working down in the boiler room, but they've really moved away from demolition phase. They're actually starting to do construction down there. Some of the bigger things you may have noticed is the gym lobby has been torn down there in the courtyard. That's been opened up. The storm sewer over on the west side of the building between there and the weight room, they're still putting that in. Chris has worked with Mr. Grauer and Mr. Dietrich to make sure the kids and the staff still have access to the weight room in a safe manner while that's going on. You probably remember some of the information we've been sending you weekly. Talked about some material for the kitchen, delaying our ability to cook in the kitchen. That ductwork did come in this week, should be installed next week, so we're prepared to have to serve sack lunches or cold lunches for 4 days next week. Maybe be able to cook sooner, but we've already planned for that. Chris has worked with the staff, and they're geared up, ready to go. Prussia Glass has finished replacing the windows here on this site. Moving over to the Early Childhood Center, again, not a lot of work to be done over there. They received temporary occupancy permit approval Tuesday, so all the staff has started moving into those newly renovated spaces. The tricycle track on that southwest corner is complete, and the staff over there is in the process of ordering playground furniture that'll be paid for with a grant from Head Start. I think we're just about ready to place that order, putting the finishing touches on it, and that'll come for board approval very soon. There'll be a storage shed that goes there and so on for the play equipment, so that's going to be a nice space as well. But mostly, they're good to go. The only big piece of work still remaining are those overhead security doors. You guys call that area the piazza? Is that what you call that?
Yes, the preschool piazza.
Yeah, there's some security doors. Those were on back order. They'll come in, and there's 3 doors. They'll be installed one at a time. Everything blocked off and secure away from kids and staff when that's happening. And that'll happen sometime in September, I believe. At the elementary school, that has been our challenge. So much work to do, so much to get done. But we're happy to report that they did receive approval for temporary occupancy on Monday. I think within 30 seconds, the principal and our staff were moving furniture into those new spaces. They were right on the heels. The custodial crew, buildings and grounds, it was all hands on deck. They really have done a great job. There's still work going on, you know, a few little odds and ends here and there. That's all being coordinated real well with the principal and the staff. A couple of big pieces that will happen around September 24th. That's a professional development day for the district. No kids on site. That's when they're planning to install what they call the storefronts. Basically the glass walls and the vestibule around that new office space. And also the exterior entrance to the Circle Drive, that will get a new glass storefront as well. So they're planning to do that on or about the 24th. Don't know if they'll be able to do it all in one day. They may work on Saturday, but as we get closer to that time, we'll keep you informed. As Chris mentioned, the furniture's been ordered. The playground work is underway. If you've been over there, that asphalt track is already in place. And by the way, Chris, they did the repair, so that today it looks much better. Swing sets on the north side are in place. Essentially, all they have to do is put the mulch around that swing set and then sod. What you guys used to refer to as the mulch field that now drains much better. That will be sod. It'll be irrigated. That grassy sod area will probably be pretty soft and pretty wet for the next few weeks. Both the mulch area, the swings, that asphalt track should be available for the kids when they come in next week.
Awesome.
So we're really happy with that. Contractors have done well. In terms of numbers, I know you asked about where do we stand. At the high school, that contract is about $19.3 million. We've got still a couple years worth of work. We've only paid out about $650,000, so not a lot paid out. And I will say that there still remains about $1,275,000 in contingency funds for that. So we're just beginning to scratch the surface. There are several things in the works, you know, surprises that popped up that we're getting prices on. Those are not included in our numbers yet, but again, we're just scratching the surface there. The smaller project, the Early Childhood Center, that was about a $607,000 project. We've only paid out about $107,000. As you're probably aware, the payments tend to lag a month or two behind the actual work. So you'll probably see a pretty large payment going out to Wachter next month to catch up with that a bit. That project, the Early Childhood Center, we probably, at this point, there are over $50,000 in contingency funds that we've not touched at the Early Childhood Center. I'll back up, sorry, I read the wrong line. $35,000 at the ECC that have not been touched. Then finally at the elementary school, it's about a $1.5 million project. We've only paid out about $380,000. So again, there'll be a big payment this time next month. And at the elementary, there remains about $52,000 in contingency funds that we've not obligated. We'll probably use that to pay for this upgrade to the rubberized surface on the playground. Now, there is still a grant application hanging out there still. Dr. Meacham applied for it, what, April, May?
And somewhere in the spring.
The wheels turn fast. But if that were to come through, that could potentially pay for $40,000 of that rubberized surface, which will then allow us to return those contingency funds back into the general construction budget. So all said and told, we're in pretty good shape budget-wise. I think when we stand before you next month, there won't be a whole lot left hanging out there with the elementary and the ECC. And I hope that well, I wanted to mention the change orders that Chris presented to you earlier. There's nothing in those change orders that you haven't seen in the Friday memos.
Yep.
All the detail, everything's there, and they're all in those. There's no surprises. I mean, right down to the penny. So there should be good. Be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Beyond the high school, where there's still probably a lot we don't know or could get into, ECC and elementary, like you said, I think a lot of the demo work pretty much done. We're into more in the construction phase now, so likelihood of big surprises behind walls are
Yeah.
probably limited, right?
Extremely limited now at the ECC and the elementary, but we're really into almost a punch list phase.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
And thank you, everyone, for working so hard to keep the numbers down and to apply for grants and things like that so we can be fiscally responsible.
And these reports are so helpful
Yes.
and very much appreciated. The weekly communication, the monthly
Yeah.
reports. And I mean, I know change orders can be tedious, but it really does help us through this process in a way
Quite well.
we've never really experienced before.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Ed Rich, Prop E progress video.
Good evening. I want to say something real quick about the website. This morning, my team had our 5th training session with a representative from Blackboard Inc., and we identified some challenges, nothing insurmountable at all, with migrating some of the content from the current site to the new site. I think it's going to add a couple of weeks, so I think we're looking at late September for the launch. And as I've reported before, the app, which is probably an even more intricate process to develop, won't come until later in the semester. But it'll happen, and when it does, it'll be fabulous. So I think I need to connect here. Remember when you were in school and the teacher rolled in the AV cart, and you were like, yes, don't have to pay attention today? That's where we are. I'm not going to pretend that I know or that I understand everything that I was recording when I shot this video, but Randy does and Chris does, for sure. But I wanted to give a sense of what's happening in the spaces, in all the spaces over the summer. I think I was astonished by some of the stuff. So I have 2 videos. One is short of 4 minutes. The other is really short. And I shot it just 4 days ago, and I found it to be almost astonishing. But anyway, let's just take a look at this. Make it big. Hello? Let's go. There we go. That's out of the 4th floor, middle school window. These are the crews replacing the windows. This was a weeks-long process. So Wachter, obviously, is the contractor. This is at the elementary school. Almost unrecognizable. This is what the office suite looks like now. That's the 2nd floor at the elementary school. That is the cafeteria where they parked all the stuff that had to be moved. This was the surplus sale at the high school. Walking through the old superintendent's office right now. That is what was central office. There's Roxana's professional development closet. It didn't get touched for a while. I think it's torn apart now.
It's gone now.
Yeah, it's all gone. The old boardroom was used for a while as the construction office. This, of course, the commons. The artwork will return. It's the workout room on the west side of the cafeteria. We're at the ECC now. Again, Wachter doing the work for us there. These are the improvements in the office entry area. Okay, so this was just Monday morning, and you know, I've been here only 4 years, and I don't have a deep emotional investment in this district like a lot of you do. But when I saw this, I was like, wow, this is real. This is what 82% of Prop E voters decided they wanted to happen. So there you go. That's it.
Thank you so much for that, Ed.
You're welcome.
It's awesome to have it documented as things are happening. I think that's great for all of us to see. And it is, we got to walk the spaces, and it's definitely different.
And all of that construction in children's learning spaces will be cleaned up before next week. It'll be great to see the after video, which we know many of the spaces are already functional, even from that work.
Okay, moving on to finance, Chris.
Okay, sorry, I was enjoying that. All right. Let me get that pulled up. Well, this is July. There's typically not a whole lot of things happening yet. On the financial side, we'll just mention a couple of things here. Revenues are on track, if you notice the items of interest there. Revenues are on track and comparable to prior years. Of course, county revenues are zero. We don't start receiving those receipts until December, but we do have sufficient cash on hand to weather those winter months without going for a tan this year again, I am glad to say. State revenues are they're a little bit lower than they have been, but you'll remember the July payments have all been adjusted, so no worries here. Federal revenues are zero. We are still awaiting a drawdown on the ESSER 2 funds, which is actually in the prior fiscal year, so that's where those will be applied. But the federal funds will start rolling again once we start doing drawdowns on the plan that Roxana just presented to you earlier this evening. When it comes to the expenditure side, salaries and benefits are tracking where they have been in prior years, given the changes in our salaries, given the salary schedule and the increase to support staff salaries and wages, Purchase services are about 5% and higher. You'll remember last year we started in virtual, so we weren't really going anywhere yet. So those expenditures were slightly stunted, but they are in full swing this fiscal year in July. Supplies are about the same. Again, they're about 1% of the budget, but last year there wasn't a whole lot happening yet. So capital outlay, the annual technology purchase on the capitalized side is smaller this year due to we're on the small side of our staff refresh. So that's why it's about half of what it was last year this time. All in all, the budget is strong. I always like to go to this last page, the fund balance report. When you look at the 2021, we ended with about a 51% fund balance as compared to expenditures now. These are unaudited. We are under audit currently, so I do expect these to be adjusted slightly as we debate back and forth on which expenditures should go where and this, that, and the other. But we're pretty confident in our financials at this point. And right now the budget is 45.7% on the fund balance side and strong. Any questions?
Thank you.
Good luck with the audit process.
Yeah.
It's always an adventure.
We look forward to seeing our friends again.
Yes.
Right.
And actually, the auditors will be in our offices the end of the month, right at the end of the month, for their second visit.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, moving on to board communications, calendar of events. We've had quite a few events this past week. We actually had the new teacher breakfast was Wednesday, August 11th. We had opening day celebration, August 18th. I got to attend last night the open house for high school, so that's exciting. We do have a SSD parent back to school Zoom meeting Monday. And then we've got TLC coming up September 1st. Everybody remember we've got a board work session September 2nd. And then SSD Governing Council September 13th. That'll take us into our committees in just a second. So that's exciting. And then CBTF is coming up also September 15th. And a new teacher celebration September 17th. Is there anything else anyone wanted to add with regard to the calendar?
I know it'll sneak up on us quickly. I do see that the chamber gala is in October, so we should probably at some point just touch base about what sort of presence we want to have at that.
That's a good conversation to have. It's October 8th, which is a Friday at 6. So maybe we can talk about who's able to attend.
Yeah, and will they be continuing the tradition of honoring Mrhe Teacher of the Year?
They are continuing with that. I've actually had an opportunity to attend the last 3 chamber meetings as well as the quarterly luncheons that they do. Kat and I have had discussion. They sent the information over. They are asking, they have a couple asks. For us to either make donations or to sponsor a table. And so we discussed table sponsorship and then looking at what we might be able to contribute from a basket standpoint. And they are also asking for lotto tickets for a lotto treat. So interesting ask. But we will have that information in the next board note as well, and then also included in the board note if anyone wants to participate in the MSBA conference as well, so that's also included too.
That's November, correct?
Yeah.
Can you remind me what the CBTF is?
Compensation Benefits Task Force.
Okay.
I know you're talking about committees in the next agenda item.
Yes.
But once we agree on whatever we have presented here, can we get calendar invites to the committees that we're a part of?
Yes.
Sorry, that's just helps me organize my calendar a little bit.
Makes sense to me, Francis.
Thank you.
So speaking of which, let's go into the board committee assignments. So I sent these out to you. This is based on what everybody signed up for. Did I miss anything? So these are the committee assignments for, of course, advocacy, it's all of us. Board Development Committee is Francis, Amber, and Katie. Calendar Review is Mrhe, Rachel, and myself. Community Engagement is all of us. Compensation Benefits Task Force, CBTF, is Francis, Amber, and Rachel. Wellness Committee is Ralph and Amber. Fundraising Committee now, Amber and Mrhe. And then groups with board liaisons, we've still got Joe's Place, which is myself and Ralph. MSBA is Katie. MSBA alternate is Francis. SSD Governing Council is Rachel. And the Governing Council alternates are Ralph and myself. Did I leave anyone out or? Okay, so we'll get calendar invites and then go from there. Any questions? Okay.
The first CBTF, I just want to say, is on Yom Kippur.
Oh, is it? I did not realize.
But we'll give
the good news is we've got 3 people, so we can, I don't think all 3 have to attend
Yeah.
each one, right?
No.
And thank you for pointing that out, and let's check on that next time as well. Okay, moving on to Joe's Place. I don't believe we have a report for Joe's Place. Ralph, do you have anything?
No, I don't. Really, there's nothing to report. There hasn't been a meeting. Julia Schaefer is dealing with a few health issues, but we're kind of all being supportive of her, and right now nothing else has happened. Last I mentioned that we're still looking for new parents for Joe's Place. I haven't heard if we have any names yet or anything, but present house parents are still there.
Vince is saying yes. Vince is nodding vigorously.
Yeah, so.
There are some names.
We've had some applications, great.
Right. So hopefully, you know, maybe next month I can give you more update of what's really going on.
Yeah, we should start having meetings again too.
Yes.
So. Great, thank you. Okay, moving on to action items. We've got policy BBFA.
Move to readopt board policy BBFA as presented in order to remain in compliance with the Missouri Ethics Commission.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Rachel. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, 702, policy batch 2021B.
Move to approve policy IGCD and IGCDA as presented by MSBA in the 2021B policy batch.
Second.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Rachel. All those in favor?
Was it Amber?
It was Amber.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
That's right, I got you, don't worry about it. I got it.
Sorry about that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 2021-2022 bus routes.
Move to approve the 2021-2022 bus routes as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Ralph. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Construction change orders for ECC and MRHE.
Move to approve the change orders as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Francis. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. MRHE playground surfacing contract.
Move to approve the playground surfacing contract as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Rachel. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. MRHE furniture purchase.
Move to approve the elementary furniture purchase as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Rachel. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Ralph?
Time for us to go into executive session. I move to enter executive session in accordance with section 610.021, subsection 3, 9, and 13, and section 610.022 of